All right, just a couple things as we get going. If you take a look at mine right now, it looks pretty much the way that the one in the book looks. Okay, I'm on around page 118. So I've gone through in there and I've changed the size of all of my labels to 20. I've made it an Arial bold font like they asked you to do. I had to move some stuff, expand it a little bit. I changed the size to 20, etc. Changed the color to white. I didn't work or worry about the opacity. I mean, there's things when you look over here, this probably isn't totally even. So we could sit there and just tweak with it a bit, but that's all we'd be doing right now. All right. So I'm on around page 118. And the good news is you go, yeah, well, you'll never finish because I don't plan on finishing. But on page 118, then they start talking about this and they say, well, now we have to start being concerned about the buttons. All right. Now, with some of the stuff in here, it'll be interesting. I want to show you something on screen here, and I want to show you what I did, because what they mentioned on the screen, or in this handout here, I didn't see all that stuff on my machine. So I want to see if what I'm about to show you, if you see it or you don't see it. So all I'm going to do right now is we're going to go over how to change the hit me button. You with me? So we're just going to change that. Now, this will get us to about page 126, which means there's about 26 pages left. On those last 26 pages, what the author talks about is if you wanted to make sure that this project ran fine on an iPhone 4S, you'd have to set these constraints. If you want to make sure it works fine on an iPhone 6S, you have to set these constraints. That's what most of the last 25 pages or so in this is about. I'm not going to cover that. There's not enough time. All right? But I want to finish this, and then I want to show you something. Okay? So I'm going to switch machines, and I want to show you something. So, again, what does the author say here? Changing the look of the buttons works very much the same way. Select the Hit Me button. In the size inspector, set its width to 100 and its height to 37. Center it so it's centered on the background image. Go to the attributes inspector, set the type to custom. All right, this is a big thing. Please look up here. Buttons by default are set up to system. What they decided back about, I think it was iOS 7, and we're in 9 now, they decided that a button wasn't going to look like a button anymore. Have you ever noticed that? How the close button doesn't look like a button? If you keep your button type set to system, it will never look like a regular button. If you change it to custom, which is what they do here, you can make changes to it. All right, so it says you can style it any way you want. So they talk about how you can style it in here. This is what I had problems with setting the text color to these different values. Maybe I just did something wrong, or the way I did it was wrong. So I want to show you what I did. All right? So the way that I did it is different than the way they did it in the book, but we get pretty much the same result. All right? So that's what I want to show you now. So I'm going to go through this stuff. So we're going to be at the point where it pretty much looks the way that it should when it's done, except that Start Over button and that Info button, I won't have formatted them, so they won't look pretty. All right? So other than that, okay? And right now, would you all agree when you look at this? If you look up on the screen here for a second, see how our Start Over button says Start Over? I know it's hard to read now, but see how it says that? They ask you to change that to one of the images you copied over, so it looks like this. I'm not going to go through that either. I got that to work. It's not hard if you follow the steps. All right? But what they're saying is there's already enough text on here. So let's change that so it looks like this. And if you follow the steps, it should work okay. All right? But right now, as you can see, you have to do some changes with color here because this stuff is hard to see, and so is this. All right? There's also a section in here that starts on around page 120 or 120 something that shows you, they have you put some code in there. It's like at the bottom of one of the pages. They say add this code to the slider. And when you do, the slider will change color, and the thing in the middle will now look like a target if you follow their steps. All right? If we have time, we'll go through that. I'm more concerned with a couple of other things I want to go over with you. Because again, this is the last official lecture that I'm giving this semester in any class. All right? Period. My class is tomorrow. Again, if you are in tomorrow, if you remember, if you're in the bootstrap class, all right, whether you've been coming or haven't been coming, you better come tomorrow because you're supposed to show your project tomorrow. Everybody is. There's 12 or 13 people in there, figuring it'll take around 5 minutes a piece to go through those. Maybe we'll even have Travis in there as like a guest watcher.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Maybe.
Okay, there you go. And he'll be yelling max slurs at you the entire time you're up there. All right. So I'm going to follow the author's steps here on page 118. So the author says, select the Hit Me button. So there we have it right here. It's now selected. All right. Then go to the size inspector. And the size inspector is the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one over. It's right there. All right. And it says set its width to 100 and set its height to 37. And you can immediately see that the size of that button has changed. All right? Center the position of the button in the inner circle, so move it until you get, there we go, boom. That's close enough. All right? Go to the Attributes Inspector and change the type. So the Attributes Inspector is right here, right next to the Size Inspector. It's the fourth one over. So click on that. All right? And we want to change the type from System to Custom. All right? Press the arrow on the background field. So somewhere over here, there's something that says background. Right there, background. So select that, and we're supposed to choose the button normal. All right? Look on the screen. Can you see how we've changed it already? So the rest of the stuff that's in there is aesthetic as far as what we're changing, because we were supposed to change the button so it's stuck out a lot more. And I don't know about you, but I think it sticks out a lot more. All right? So I've done that. And then they say, set the font, just like we did before. So we've got to come over to here. And we want it to be 20 point. So I'm going to bump it up to 20. Now it is. I'm going to click the T. I'm going to click over here and change it to custom. Click down here and change it to Arial rounded like we've been using for the other stuff. There it is. Now they say set the text color as shown there. All right. So when you go to text color, here it is. Okay. If everybody look, even if yours works, if you don't look up here, I want to show you something you may or may not be aware of. When you work with colors, there's a lot of things you can do. I can click Other down here, and I can bring up, this is called the crayon box. And I clicked Other. So I can set stuff. So I was having some problems with this, but I thought, well, you know, the color is pretty close to that one. So I just chose that one. See what I'm saying? Rather than jacking around with a lot of stuff. So I just went and clicked on that. And as you can see, it pretty much, at least, I think looks the way that it's supposed to look now. All right? Again, I didn't do anything with the shadow and stuff that's on 118. They talk about opacity on 119. And starting on 119, now this is where I had a little bit of a problem. All right, on page 119, what they talk about in the handout here is they say they want the button to look a little bit different when it's highlighted. Does that make sense? All right, so they want to work with the colors and stuff, and they talk about this on 119 and on 120. That's not a big thing. But it says remove the start over from the button. Oh, that's the next one, I'm sorry. when I did that stuff, it just was a little funky. So I will do it when I go through these steps and I'm taping on Thursday, not talking, just taping. All right, I will go through that stuff. Next, on page 121, 120 and 121, they want you to change this right here to that arrow button that's right here. And they go through the steps on pages 120, and it shows you the result on the top of page 121. Then on 121, they go over the slider and how you should fix that. And they have you add a bunch of code on the bottom of 121. When you get done adding that code, as is shown there on the page, it should now look, this is what your arrow button will look like. And then when I move up a little bit, this is now what the game should look like. So when you look at it here, it's almost done. Would you agree with that? Aesthetically, it's almost finished. All right? So those are the steps that get us on 119, 120, 121, 122. Then they say the About screen on page 122 could still use a little work. So they have you dink around with the coloring and the font, etc. on 122, 123, and 124. All right? That gets us to page 125. All right? On page 125, you'll notice it says supporting the iPhone 4S. So what they're doing is they're now starting to tweak this so that it works for different size devices in the most optimal way possible. So that's on 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, 133, 134, 135. Then on page 136, they go through a similar thing, but for supporting the iPhone 6 and 6S. And that's on 136, 137, 138, 139, 140, 141, 142, to the middle of page 143. Then finally on 143, they go over something that's not particularly relevant in this class, and that's running the game on your own device and hooking up your own device. All right? Since we don't have that set up here, that I was going to skip. That's on 143 through the rest of the book. So what I will do next time is I'm going to pick it up right after finishing this, all right, and I'm going to add the other stuff, but I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to go through the motions. So if you really, if one of your goals in this program is to be on one of my tapes and talking, then you can start talking during the time, because I won't be. All right? So that's what I had. Now, I'm done with this lecture, but I just want to show you one more thing. So if you give me 5 more minutes, I'm going to close this down